and also to just talk a little bit about my intent for this course. So basically, there are only 3 areas that I hope to cover. The one is, how do we create authentic presence as a mentor or a mentee? How do we build meaningful relationships? And how do we create intentional results? And my feeling is that those are the 3 leverage areas for a great mentorship relationship. The other thing about this course is that I'm hoping that it will spill over to, whoops. Oh, I don't know where I went now. Am I still on this? Okay, I'm hoping it will spill over into other areas of your life. I think that if the course is going to be effective, then it has to be effective in all areas of your life. And the 6 areas that I chose to focus on are A, starting with personal mastery, because I believe we can't really move on to working with another until we have self-efficacy, building relationships. How do we solve problems? Not in terms of problem-solving methodologies, but really in terms of how do we identify the difference between simple, complicated, and complex problems. So really looking at some systems thinking and complexity theory there, because very often the real problem is that people try to solve complex problems with simple solutions. And then, if you know anything about systems thinking and lingo, it ends up in what they call fixes that fail. So decision making is a continuation of not what we think, but how we think, and the impact of our thinking on our decision making. And then the last one, which I think is the culmination, is advocacy. How do we talk so people will hear us? How do we listen when other people will talk? And how do we ask meaningful questions, which is a vital part of mentorship? So I just want to take a quick pause at this stage to ask if there's any questions or comments at this stage. Okay, so I suppose I'm also going to talk about ground rule number 1 for me, working on Zoom and managing my own anxiety, is I have something of a 5-second rule, which means if nobody has answered within 5 seconds, I take that to mean a yes or a no, depending on my desired outcome for the question. So I'm also hoping that we're going to get really familiar and comfortable with one another. Some of my dilemma around the learning topics is that the one learning topic I didn't include, because I promised that it would only be 6 weeks, is a topic around building a learning environment. And I'm going to ask for some latitude, because if I get to a point where I think that I haven't covered enough of that, I'm going to ask for some latitude to add 1 extra week so that I can cover that, because I'm feeling something of a sense of loss having made this decision. So that's kind of where I'm going to ask for a little bit of flexibility. My intent for this course. Oh, by the way, there are lots of slides, and when I teach live, there's never a single slide, but I've discovered that it really helps learning on Zoom when you have a visual cue as well. But if anybody thinks that it detracts, let me know and I'll throw the slides away happily. So my intent for doing this course is not to give you a set of tools and recipes for mentorship. And this is a both and, because I've included a lot of tools and recipes on this course, but I'm not necessarily going to cover them during our workshops. I'm going to give them to you as gifts to use if you want. So the workshop is much more about exploring potential. How do you, as a mentor or a mentee, inspire possibility? Because for me, the crux of mentorship is about how do I inspire possibility for myself and for others, and also to trigger further learning. So a little bit about myself, and this course isn't about me, so it won't be a lot about myself, is that in addition to being a passionate and avid member of National Mentorship Movement, full-time member, I am also an academic. So I will often refer to other learnings where if you would like to pick it up, I'm hoping you will go and do some self-learning on your own. Most of the learning that I will point you to is on open source networks, etc. I might recommend the odd book, but really to trigger your interest. You know, in 6 weeks, you can cover very little. I do similar, this course is actually a 12-week course at the university, which I've distilled. So I've hoped to keep the essence. I also want to say that I hope that I have enough knowledge and substance. If you want me to bring in other things, we can add time or we can add classes, and I will certainly try and bring in other things if there are questions about things I haven't covered. But essentially, I'm hoping that you will just inspire your own possibility for what you can do through this course. So it's highly practical. It's very interactive. Certainly when my students at WITS look back and say what was the most valuable thing they gained, it was meeting each other. Not often meeting me, but meeting each other is a big thing. So the capacity to network is also part of this. Given that my philosophy around learning is that learning is social. We are social human beings. So learning is also social. So that's a little bit about the intended outcomes, the course content, and the intent that I am bringing to this course. I'm also going to ask for people to please interrupt. I can't see my participant thing. But I do have Dave and Telfa at back of me, so I would like to introduce them. Telfa is a co-facilitator on most of the courses that we do together and is certainly my backbone in these courses. And Dave is the CEO of National Mentorship Movement. And what I love about us as a team is if you don't feel you can interrupt, put up your hand and Dave or Telfa will interrupt on your behalf because they tend to watch the chat box, etc. with me. So we are a team delivering this workshop. And Telfa, I'm wondering if you just want to say a quick hi and then I'll hand over to Dave to say a quick hi.
Sorry, Ross, I'm helping participant participant that's trying to join.
Okay.
But hi everyone, my name is Talfa and I'm thrilled to be part of this journey.
Thank you. Dave, can I call on you just to introduce yourselves, maybe say a little bit about us at National Mentorship Movement for those who aren't very familiar with us.
Sure. Good evening and welcome to some very courageous people. I'm here with some trepidation because, like many people, we are people of habit and we think we do everything right. And I must say, I feel quite vulnerable coming to a situation where I know there's going to be a lot of interaction. We're going to share things which don't work or admit that we've got lots to learn. So welcome to a world of vulnerability, which is exactly, I suppose, the world of mentorship, because for us to be effective mentors or to be mentored, each party in the relationship does need to be vulnerable to one another and to create those relationships of trust, of mutual learning, of mutual benefit. And that's really what we in the National Mentorship Movement stand by. We currently have about 660 relationships that we're managing at the moment in various spheres with unemployed youth, with students, with entrepreneurs. And fundamentally, we rely on people like yourselves, both mentors and mentees, who are generous enough of their time and their experience to share with their fellow South Africans and hopefully give all of us a better chance in life. So thanks for being part of our journey, and I look forward to being part of yours.
Roland, thank you so much for the question. Questions also help me a huge amount to say what needs to be said. Yes, you will get the slides, and yes, you will get notes. So I think you saw in that little thing, it said more notes to come. Just a little bit about why you get the notes after and not before. And you guys can argue because we all have different learning styles and some people like to arrive prepared. But given the rest of my philosophy that these courses are experiential. So I love that you have the experience before you read the notes, because then they become meaningful to you in your own context. What I have asked you to do is bring a notebook, and so that you can journal. And what I'm hoping you can do in your journal is write down your ahas. There are notes about what I am saying, so you don't have to write the content unless there's a sentence or two where you go, I want that one. Write down your own thoughts, because they're much more important than mine to you. And hopefully you will keep your journal as an ongoing reflection on your learning. And I think if you didn't write something down, because I would so much prefer that you participate instead of take notes. And you want notes, I'll either write them if they're not in the workbook or tell you what I said, if I remember what I said. And I think that these sessions are being recorded. Looks like it, although I can't see. Just another word about that. I'm always loath to share the recordings. The reason being that when you're in the room, the learning is real. My experience is when you watch the recording, it's so secondhand, it can be quite boring. So they are being recorded if there's something specific you want. I'm not, what's the word? I'm not being miserly with the recordings, but I'd much prefer that you don't depend on them. And that you depend on being in the room. What you take away, and it's enough. So the other couple of things I'm going to ask you for is that this session, you might walk away thinking, oh my word, we covered not very much. But there's this wonderful Latin saying that goes, festina lente, make haste slowly. So we are going a little bit slow to go fast. so that everybody will be on board for the learning. So I'm going to ask you to exercise perhaps patience. And given what I said, that this is an experience and not a set of tools to take away, I'm hoping that you go away richer in experience. You know, it's like the age-old thing, if you've got some money, do you spend it on a holiday or a possession? I'm hoping that this is spending it on a holiday rather than a possession. So a little bit about my request to you. And then a little bit about how the workshops are going to go. There will be other models for mentoring. But this is based on something called Theory U. I did promise you that I would recommend other places. This is a theory that was evolved by a man called Otto Scharmer. Great book called Presencing, but an incredibly good open source website that's got many tools and tips. You can go onto his website and really know how to practice Theory U. And if you're more interested in that, edX, EDX, I don't know if anybody has ever heard of edX, an amazing online learning platform, a collaboration between MIT, Stanford, and Harvard, and I see other universities have come on it, and they do free courses, and Theory U is one of them. But Otto talks about a process, and it starts with co-initiating, building common intent, just stopping to listen, stopping to be aware, in fact, just stopping. And what we are doing right now is co-initiating this course. And then he talks about co-sensing. And co-sensing is the place actually of making meaning. So I'm going to ask those of us who are quite extrovert and think and talk and learn at the same time to take on the role of observer. And just, this is a time we're going to make meaning together. At the bottom of the U, he talks about a deep dive. Presencing, that's what his work is based on. It's based on presencing, and it's allowing inner knowing to emerge. And that's what I'm really hoping will happen for each one of you. So I'm hoping each one of you will come out saying, oh, that course meant this to me. And hopefully it won't be the same thing for all people. And that's pretty much what I'm hoping we will achieve in the room. What I'm hoping you will achieve when you leave the room is what he calls co-creating, which is prototyping the new. And if we look back at the IT world talks about prototyping, which is creating very small fail-safe experiments going forward. Please don't wait for the end of the course to start experimenting with what we're learning. So I'm hoping that between sessions, you will do little prototype experiments and then take that into the world and evolve your learning into your own model of practice or theory of change. So that's a little bit on the background and the design of the course. And as you see, it's steeped in quite esoteric principles. I think what you're going to discover is that I bring a lot of non-substance in terms of practicality, although I consider it a very practical course. It's also built on some pretty airy-fairy stuff, which is a little bit about what I'm made of. So I do bring that. And for those of more practical amongst us, I'm going to ask you to breathe into it, because for some of us, it's very difficult to look at a model like this and not go, oh my God, what have I let myself in for? So I do want to acknowledge those of us who thought we were coming for practical, concrete learning. We're coming for lots of levels of learning and concrete experience, because learning is also practical. I keep hitting the wrong button. So what do I require from you is that you do come with an open mind. It's very hard. We do judge as human beings. And in our thinking workshop, we're actually going to deal with the fact that judgment is good. And how do we apply that judgment? But staying open mind means you can't not judge, but suspend your judgment. Open heart. Hopefully you'll be generous to yourself and others on this course as we learn together. And open will means willingness. I loved what Dave said. A willingness to be vulnerable, because we can't learn if we're not vulnerable. And vulnerability for me is the opposite of expertise, and experts never learn. They sit in their expertise, they don't sit in learning. So I am going to ask you for that. And then I'm going to ask you, this is the journey. See, I did put something concrete in here. So what I'm asking is that we engage and reflect. So this is U theory translated, okay? We do some co-sensing and we make meaning, we reflect. I'm hoping we go out, we apply the learning, we integrate it in our own lives, and then we engage in other contexts. So certainly in terms of your journaling and that, I would love that to be a model of how we're going to approach this course as a group. And I'm also hoping that we are going to really be open to learning from one another. If I'm only learning from me, I get bored. So I'm really hoping that I am going to learn from you as well. So the question I want you to ask yourself, and the first question I'd like you to write in your journal, I'm going to give you about a minute to write this. How will you show up on this course? For yourself? For others? How are you planning to show up? And I'm going back to some of the things, like what are some of the things you usually do to sabotage your own learning? Like maybe one of the ways you'll show up is as simple as not having your cell phone on. One of the ways I'm about to show up is closing the door to the rest of my house because I'm being distracted by noise. I'm hoping one of the ways you will show up is to keep your camera on and to stay present. So what are some of the other ways that you will show up for yourself so that you take the most away? So a minute to do that. Whoops. And I'm going to give you a little chance to talk about that in the breakout rooms in a few minutes. But the first tool we're going to actually learn in terms of mentorship, and I guess what I'm asking you to do is wear two hats. The one is as a participant, and the other one is as a practitioner. So we start all meetings with a check-in. And in fact, we start all human interactions with a check-in. And by the way, there are notes on check-in. There are notes on most things. You know, hello, how are you? That's check-in. Just a check-in. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to look at this little blob tree and select the person on the blob tree that you identify with right now. This isn't a big life decision. Right now, did you have a bad day and you feel like you're hanging on a noose, or, you know, are you being pulled up the tree or whatever? Right now, in this moment, and write in the chat box. Maybe, don't have to write in the chat box, but choose the person on the blob tree that you identify with right now. Whoops, I keep doing this. I also have a question from Dave about, is it only him or can anybody else not hear me?
We can hear you, Ross.
Can you hear you?
Okay, because I was having trouble earlier. Okay, everybody got a person on the blob tree. So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. And in your breakout rooms, I would like for you to talk about why did you choose that person on the blob tree. So just to tell people your names, why did you choose that person on the blob tree? I'd also like you to talk about what have you come here to achieve? And as a learning, I want to say, I didn't ask what are your expectations? Because somehow when we have an expectation, it feels like an outside-in thing. So I'm not interested in what you expect. I'm interested in what you hope to achieve. So you made a choice, you registered. There's a reason for that. And what do you want to achieve by the end of this course? Having had a little bit of insight, how will you know that you have achieved it? So what's a little bit of the evidence for that? One way that you sabotage your own learning. So I have a whole number of ways that I sabotage my own learning. If I have to talk about that, one of the ways I sabotage my own learning is to not kind of land in the learning for about 3 weeks. And then by the time I catch up, I've never caught up. I sabotage my learning online, might be by multitasking and listening with only half an ear with my camera off. Sometimes I sabotage my learning by not doing the preparation work. So what is it that you typically do to sabotage your learning? And what will you do differently this time so that your learning is, of the most value? So I'm going to put, give me a sec. Yeah. And I'm going to give you, it always feels like 15 to 20 minutes is a long time. And then you get there and people go, that was too short. But knowing that you're going to go into breakout rooms quite often. So to have this conversation, what have you come to achieve? How will you know that you have achieved it? One way you sabotage your learning, and what will you do differently this time on this course? I will copy this and put it into the chat box. While you're in the breakout rooms, you can access the chat box. So I will put this in the chat box while you're going into the rooms. If there's anybody who is unfamiliar with Zoom, breakout rooms, etc., I will help you to get into your breakout rooms. You'll be left behind. Any questions or comments before I put you into your breakout rooms? Five-second rule. Everybody comfy. Okay, so you're going to say your name, who you are on the blob tree.
Sorry, Ross.
Yes.
Hold on. Marcy is asking. She says, I'm not familiar with the breakout rooms.
I'm going to help you with that because everyone else will go into one and I'll help you get into one as soon as I've opened them. Cool.
Someone else says, I may need help getting into the breakout room as well. Okay, that's fine. You're going to assist.
Stay behind if you have trouble getting in and I will help you there.
I think Rihanna needs help. Okay, she's fine.
I'm just trying to get this into the breakout room. Oh, I think I've got to do it one at a time. Telford, do you just want to help those guys to find the... Oh, I don't know this breakout, this chat box thing. No, I don't see it. Kenilwe and Bongi, do you need some help there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, are you on a phone or a...
I've just switched to my laptop.
Okay, can you see a button that says, just give me a sec. I just have to do this. I just want to get this into... Oh, sometimes I'm not very good at this. Let me just quickly do this. Sorry, Angel. I will be there in a sec.
Yes.
It's not given it to me. Oh, well, it's just posted. Okay, I've posted it 5 times. Can you see a button that says join breakout room?
No, where?
On... Telfa went into the breakout rooms and he always helps me with this. On... Let me just pause the recording as on after. Just waiting for everybody to come back into the room. Okay, we have everybody back in the room. So I'm not going to debrief this yet. We are going to have a chance to debrief it in a few minutes because it's part of building a picture for you about what is mentorship. So I'm going to go on and give you a little bit of a view of the history of mentorship and how we look at mentorship at National Mentorship Movement. So the word mentor actually comes from Homer's Odyssey, where Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, went off to fight in the Trojan War and left his son Telemachus in the care of his friend and advisor named Mentor. So it seems that the name actually emanates from that place. I haven't found any other historical root of the name. But just what I do want to add, because there's a little bit of a corollary to this story, if you read behind the lines, is that Athena, the goddess Athena, actually disguised herself as Mentor. So Mentor was actually bringing the feminine as well to Telemachus's life. So for me, it's just a little bit of an interesting slant on the story. And from that story, I guess we got a very traditional view of mentorship. And then I want to look at something in the pre-industrial revolution, the agrarian revolution and birthplace of industry. I think that mentorship and apprenticeship went hand in hand. And so if a man was a blacksmith, the chances are that his own son and other children, people's children who wanted to learn blacksmithing would come into his environment and he would mentor them into a role. And so I think the word mentoring started to take on a very different role in the pre-industrial revolution, where we're moving towards, and it's still for me a little bit patriarchal, but that atmosphere of mentoring somebody into the role of manhood. Then we had the Industrial Revolution and the birth of the assembly line, and that connection between father and son or between men and boys began to be lost. And I think in that space, so did mentorship become lost. And then in the 20th and 21st centuries, we've had many cultural revolutions, including the birth of the double income family, where I believe women started to lose their mother as mentor. So mothers were now going out to work and leaving their girl children in the care of somebody else. And so just in my looking at mentorship through the ages, how the meaning of mentorship has somewhat changed. And I think mentorship is also a term which I use, quite a provocative word called hijacking, that's been hijacked by the commercial world in terms of mentoring, replacing training as a cheap alternative to development in the organization. And sometimes the essence and the meaning of mentorship gets lost in that. And so really to look at the meaning of mentorship, and why this is important is that I believe that you need to look at the meaning of the word mentorship for you. Because what mentorship means for you is what you will bring to your mentoring relationship. So I'm dwelling quite a lot on what is mentorship, not because I think the definition is important, but in terms of that, the way you define mentorship, the way you identify mentorship will be the way you identify with it as a mentor or a mentee. I am a little curious how many mentors and how many mentees we have on the call, and I might do a little roll call in that regard just now. So I want to talk about, for me, the evolution of mentorship into what we believe at National Mentorship Movement that mentorship is. So going back to the idea of Homer's Odyssey, the traditional thought is that mentorship is a relationship in which an experienced, wise, older teacher, counselor becomes a positive influence in somebody's life through imparting guidance, advice, and support, with a clear focus on a less experienced person. So I think that for me, that terminology of mentorship somewhat demarcates a little bit of a master-slave relationship. Our all-knowing mentor with our nothing-knowing mentee, and something in between, in the space between. The other thing is that given our 21st century urge for speed, I think that mentorship, amongst other things, very much is about have a vision of the future, build the new world. So our mentorship meetings kind of go, well, what do you see? How are we going to get there? Right? And what we have done, and have done quite a few workshops, by the way, on reauthoring mentorship in terms of what we believe at National Mentorship Movement. And really, if we look at the diagram on the right-hand side, it's about having a vision of the future, noticing potential. Not more than that, just notice the potential in that vision of the future. And I'm sorry that Rosemary isn't on our call, but she tells a most amazing story. Her mentee has a dream to build a hospital one day. Her mentee currently takes a taxi to I'm not sure where, buys chickens, live chickens, goes back to the township and sells the chickens for double the price. I figure she's going to build a hospital one day. There is potential in this young woman. She started with one chicken. So where do we notice potential? And it's not about being a mentor or a mentee. This is about a relationship in mentorship. What we're going to learn on this course is that the first step is to transform our thinking. Not what we think, but how we think, which leads to what we think. And the way we think about something determines the action that we take. So if I were to say, for instance, that if my time is more important to me than money, I'm a business person and my time is more important to me than money, I'm going to catch an aeroplane. I'm going to decide to catch an aeroplane. Probably wouldn't occur to me to go any other way. If I am a student and my money is more important than my time, I'm going to decide to catch a bus. So it's about the level of thinking that we create as a mentorship partnership. And having transformed thinking, it gets translated into action with very little effort. We don't have to focus on behavior, we have to focus on thinking, and thinking defines behavior. And then it is converted into results rather than driven into results. So Dave mentioned earlier, mentorship is a partnership. It is a relationship. It is a process of learning together. And I think what we bring as mentors and mentees is generous attention and intentional communication. When we bring those two things in, we sow the foundation for growth. And the last one, which I think is really important, is that whether we are a mentor or a mentee, it is a focus on our own impact as an agent of change, rather than focusing on change itself. Have a vision, build the new world. How do I personally, as mentor or mentee, become an agent of change? And on this course, we're also going to talk about agency. And that's about clear agency in terms of being an agent of change. So, this is a long class, and I'm wondering if everybody is comfortable, or do we need to take a tea break? I wonder if time out, says Mike. Is that a time out? Let's take a tea break. Okay, so a tea break. I see it's 25 to 7. Can we be back at 6:45? Just a 10-minute tea break. Cool.
Okay.
See you back here in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm now going to do is put you into breakout rooms again. And I would just like you to talk about, what have you learned? What have you discovered so far? What was interesting? What were some of the things you already knew that were reinforced? What were some of the things that were new that you didn't know before? And how do you define mentorship? So this is a pretty quick debrief. I don't think we're going to come up with a dictionary definition of mentorship, but just a reflection on time, on what we've done so far today. So just a little bit of a reflection. What have you learned or discovered? What was new? What was reinforced? And what do you think mentorship is to you? Got that? So there are no instructions, just those three things. Any questions or comments before I put you into the rooms? That means everybody's comfortable. Okay, I'm about to open the rooms. You're with different people this time. How are you doing, Tina? Mpo, nice to see you.
I'm well.
Good.
Thank you. At least I'm Tina, not Sagrin.
Oh, nobody. Oh, Dave's unassigned. Okay, let's give.
Is it sorted now, Tina?
I'm not in a group.
No, I'm assigning you right now.
No,
Okay,
I mean, you said you're not Segrin.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, Telford, do you want me to assign you to a room?
I can go. Thanks, Royce.
Okay, where should I
Why are
assign?
you here?
Mpo? No,
Oh,
Mpo's
she's
gone.
gone.
Let's see where I'm assigning you to. Who's got 4? I'll assign you to room 4. Let me just see how to assign you to the same room as.
Did you get the joke from Tina?
The what?
The joke.
No, what did she say?
She said, at least I'm Tina, I'm not Segrin.
I'm not what?
I'm not Segrin. So she used to get those emails that says, Dear Segrin.
Okay,
Yeah.
go to room 4 and have some fun.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
$7. 2 or 3 comments. I'm interested in what was new for you, what you heard somebody else say.
I'll just jump in and say what is coming across more and more for me from the mentor population is that mentorship really is about, it's not just one way. It's not just about them as the mentor sharing their knowledge and skills and everything that they've learned to get to where they are, but it's also there's something that they gain as well. It's almost a two-way exchange. It's not just one-way learning, which is new for me. And I've found that stood out the most for me in our conversations.
Anybody else have something different?
Yes, I do. For me, I've always thought a mentor is someone senior to you, you know, someone who's already went through this life or went through this career path. So to hear that a mentor is not necessarily someone who's older than you, and it can be the youngest person you know. By having conversations with them, that's when you learn that, oh, like get more information, like learn more about life because they've got a different way of seeing life. So yeah, that's the new thing for me. That's what I've learned.
One or two more?
Ross, for me, what came through for me was that mentoring is about change, because you're dealing with a situation where you might be confronted with a problem. I'm not saying that every item is a problem, but say for instance, you are confronted with a problem. It's about changing that, whatever the problem might be. It might be a perception, it might be a real hard and fast nuts and bolts kind of thing. But it's about change, because you're engineering some kind of change in the mentorship process.
Okay, 5 seconds for a last one, otherwise I'm moving on.
Well, in our group, Roslyn said something interesting, that she comes from a background of storytelling, and you reminded when you opened her that mentorship is a relationship. It's about partnership. So you both have a responsibility towards the relationship, and that is key and critical.
Yeah. Okay, so picking up on what Jerry and Manini said, I'm a little curious to know who is the mentor and who is the mentee? Anybody can answer, and there isn't a right answer. Let's have hands up. Who thinks that the elephant is the mentor? Little blue hands in your participant.
Someone in the chat box, Palisa says it's the elephant.
Aha, so lots of you think the elephant is the mentor.
Manini says it's the man.
The man. So I'm going to assume those without your hand up believe it's the man, or you can't find the blue hand. So who is in power in this relationship? Who has the power? Who do you think? Anybody can kick off this conversation?
I think the elephant has the power here.
And who do you think is, you think the elephant is the mentor with the power?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody agree or disagree with that?
So Kumaran is bringing something else for us, and he says depends on the environment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends on the circumstance, because the journey that they're walking, depending on what they're approaching and what the environment holds, will determine what the preparation is required for that journey. So I think the environment and the surrounding and the journey will determine from looking at the picture. So I guess, so that's, I think that, looking at the picture, it also depends on the environment and the circumstance, where the power lies.
Any other views?
There is one from Mercy.
Sorry, who was saying? Then we'll get to Matt, but somebody was saying something now.
It was me. I see we also have someone else who wanted to say something.
Okay.
Go ahead, Palisa.
All right, now I wanted to say it's about the willingness, because if you look at that elephant, it can easily trample over the man, but then it's not. And it's allowing the man to sort of guide it, hold it, for both to walk, so to speak. So yes, I like that analogy.
Okay. So it's one of my favorite pictures. We've got two beings of incredible power. That warrior has power. And yet they're headed, as you say, in the same direction with the same willingness. And I'm not sure why it's a picture that reminds me of mentorship. But for me, this picture signifies mentorship. Two people in a relationship of equal power, of equal learning, even though you're focusing on the goals of one. So I'm not saying mentorship is two friends coming together. There's certainly a set of guidelines around it. But in terms of the power relationship, as soon as the power relationship is skewed, you have an adult-child relationship, and here we have two adults. Well, certainly the way National Mentorship Movement promotes mentorship, we don't work with children, given that there's a whole lot of complexity around that. So I just want to get to a little about the practice of mentoring. And if we look on a scale from telling, whoops, I keep doing that, from telling to listening to just being there for another person. When we get to telling, advising, guiding, we're really in the realm of instructing. And when we're instructing as the mentor, we're pretty much taking up 100% of the airtime. And personal growth is actually far less. We learn knowledge from teachers and instructors. We seldom grow personally and emotionally when we're in an instructive environment. And then if you get to the very top of our triangle, where mentors question to learn, not question to be right, listen to connect, not listen to have the answer, and honest silence, they are using less than 70% of the airtime. And they are promoting almost 100% chance of personal development. So a very little bit about how do we come to mentorship? Okay, how much airtime am I using as the mentor? And if the answer is 90 to 100, then you're not being a mentor. If I can be prescriptive around that. So just a very quick insight into mentorship. And as I said, you're going to get notes and slides. So I'm not going over self-evident stuff. And you can look at this and make sense of it yourself. There are some do's and don'ts around mentorship that I have included. And I think that the biggest do's and don'ts, I really only want to mention two, is that the mentor should be in charge of guiding the direction of the conversation. The mentee should be in charge of guiding the direction of the relationship. And what do I mean by that is that we're finding at National Mentorship Movement that our mentors are working too hard. Our mentees should be tasked with driving the relationship, driving the meetings, taking initiative, coming to meetings prepared with goals that should be followed, that they want to achieve. And in fact, I'm going to say, as a mentor, if you're working too hard, you're in the wrong territory. And as a mentee, if you're not working hard enough, you're in the wrong territory. So I've put in some mentorship do's and don'ts. There's some mentee do's and don'ts. Don't expect your mentor to do your work. Okay, and there are a couple there, and I'm not going to go into it very deeply. And then there are a couple there for mentors. And as I said, you can read this and I will be sending it to you, so I'm not going to go into it very deeply at all. And that's about do's and don'ts. And then I have also just added this because you will find that there is a code of conduct. And it's very important, this code of conduct. We're hoping that it will govern the relationship between yourselves and the relationship between you and National Mentorship Movement, actually. And the rules, the code of conduct really has quite a bit to do with governance, ethics, what you bring to the relationship. A little bit different to the do's and don'ts. Dave, and you're allowed to say nothing because Dave reckons I throw him under the bus quite often. Do you want to add anything on that score?
Only that it's worth looking at the do's and don'ts as a framework of setting a relationship. And as in all the discussion groups I've been in, the key realization is that mentorship is nothing magical. It's nothing outside of what we do every day in our days and lives. You know, if we are parents, or if we have had parents, if we've been taught at school, we've played in sports teams or whatever, we've been participating and involved in mentorship all our lives. This just helps you to formalize what your normal relationship would be. You're unlikely to have a code of conduct for your marriage or for your relationship, although it might be a good idea. But in a way, those things there just create that special difference between a relationship as a mentorship relationship. But in all other ways, it fundamentally just is what good, courteous practice is to create a meaningful and trusting relationship. So worth having a good look through it. And I think that work comes from many workshops we've had with many mentor and mentee groups. So I think it's pretty well representative of what you might experience as mentors and mentees.
Thank you, Dave. What about, Dave, quickly taking people very quickly through the mentorship pathway, which is another thing that we recommend in terms of your mentorship relationship. Some of you might already be in the middle of one. So just very quickly, Dave, you want to spend a bit of time explaining this?
Sure, okay. Well, maybe it comes back to the Festina Lente quote that Raz had before, that hasten slowly. If you want to rush into relationships, set quick goals, go and achieve something, you're almost inevitably going to end up with the wrong goals and not go to where you want to. So we recommend going through a process consciously of beginning, first of all, getting to know you right at the beginning, and building a sense of trust, who you are as a person, not what knowledge base the other individuals got, but who they are as people. Because without that relationship of trust, you're not going to get to that level of vulnerability and openness, which will lead to going to the right goals. If you don't go through thoroughly getting to know one another, ego will get in the way, and the mentee will try and impress, or the mentor will try and impress, and then it becomes a false relationship. So really get to the stage where you can communicate very, very much at the personal level. And only then does it make sense to get direction. And that direction is setting goals or what it is you jointly like to achieve. And it's goals for both of you. On the mentor, they might be less quantitative, but it might be just getting a greater understanding of what it is to be a young person in South Africa today, or in a particular geography, but to get direction. And again, going back to that issue of doing it right, in one of the first mentorship relationship I had as part of the national mentorship movement, after 3 months, we discovered the goals that we had set in the first session were completely irrelevant because we simply didn't know enough at the time. And we wasted a lot of time then having to go back. If we'd spent more time up front, we'd have more quickly got to meaningful goals and then worked on to the next thing, which is what I call get value, or what's on the screen there is enable growth. And there you really are working together as in any other relationship to ensure that you're working towards some sort of a goal. And we have a wrap up and close as a final phase, if you like, because although mentorship tends to be a life sentence, if you don't provide at least a milestone on the way, which is a wrap up or a close, it can get boring, it can get lose momentum, and then one of the parties is feeling uncomfortable because they're no longer getting the value, but they're doing it because they feel they ought to. So having a set time frame, which is now case generally a year, does provide that sense of, okay, there is a milestone at the end. And you're very welcome in our context to renew your vows, if you like, and start on a new set of goals after the year. But we recommend really thinking about this in a year cycle, doing the right sense of, the right trust building at the beginning, then getting the right direction, then working together as a team, and then coming to a conclusion, which, as I say, might lead to a lifelong friendship, great to have known you and a parting, or even into another formal mentorship process with goals. But strongly recommend that you think of it as a cycle, which could be renewed into other cycles.
Thank you, Dave. And then a couple of tools. The one is a guideline for your meetings. For those of you who want something a little formal, we recommend that you connect. You first connect, check in, explore, plan, and then act is what happens outside of doing your mentorship meeting. And that's the place where you're really prototyping and hopefully reflecting. So I think I'm not going to read through these because you'll have a chance to read through it. And next week, we're going to start with questions that you have, because I've sort of gone very quickly through some of these slides, and you will have an opportunity to come back and ask some questions about them. But there's a tool to use for your actual meeting, and then some other tools that you will find in your notes. There's quite an extensive write-up about check-ins, because we find check-ins really important. A check-in says, I've arrived. I like to compare it to checking in at the airport. You put your baggage through, you let your baggage go, and you step over the threshold into your mentoring meeting or into this workshop, which is why we always start with a check-in. And I've given you two tools. The one is a before action review, and the other one is an after action review, both actually designed by colleagues of mine who were working with the United States Army, and I have included an article on both. But it is a process of identifying before you embark on anything what it is you're going to achieve and debriefing what you have achieved. So they're really useful tools. that I've included in, although we're definitely not going to cover them because it takes quite a long time to go through those. And I'm hoping that the tools are not only tools you use in your mentorship, but if you doing projects at work or projects in your community, that these will come in handy. And I think I'm going to include one more, which I'm going to put in the notes, which is a lovely thing also developed by colleagues of mine called What, So What, Now What, which is a lovely way of having a look at entry into a project. So I will include all of those. They're in the notes. So that's pretty much this first module. But what I'd like you to do is spend 5 minutes, maybe I'll make that 3 because it feels like a long time, is really just for yourself reflecting on what we've covered so far. I'm hoping it's been quite a journey. And for me, it's about connecting the dots, turning the knowledge and information into your own experience. So just in your journal, what insights have you had? What tools have you learned? I don't think we've learned a whole lot this week, but those tools are going to gather momentum. What will you do with what you learned? And even if it is not to do with mentorship, I'm going to have a different conversation with my sister who I had a fight with yesterday. I don't mind, but please set an intent to put some learning into action. And the last one is always about leaving the learning loops open, which is such an important thing. What questions do you still need to answer? So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes for that, and then we will close. So those of you who are still writing, I'm hoping that you will continue to write after this call. So I want to thank you for joining our very first module. And as is customary on these and our fireside chats, I always say if you have a hard stop, please drop off the call. But we do keep the hallway open a bit, the virtual hallway. When you're doing live training, there are people who kind of hang out at the door and then you end up chatting for a little while longer. So I'm keeping the hallway open, the virtual hallway, for those of you who would like to chat for a little bit longer. Maybe you've got some questions. I would love some feedback. How was the pace? What could I be doing differently next time for you? What did you enjoy? So I would also like some feedback, because my experience is it doesn't help to wait till the end of the course to get feedback for improvement. So I'm hoping that this is also a learning experience for me, and I'm really open to feedback. I would enjoy that. I do also want to say that on Thursday night, those of you who attend our fireside chats, I see a few of you. As you know, we have now started every alternate week to create a community of practice. And this week I'm very excited. A friend and colleague from Sweden, Annika, is actually bringing a model that she has used over the years in her organization and in the Society for Organizational Learning, where we're both members. And so it's really a different view of mentorship. So I'm hoping that that's almost a continuation of this class, and that those of you who can be there on Thursday night will be there, because I think that it's going to be an incredible learning. She's an incredible woman. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. And those who'd like to stay on the call, I'd like to hear more from you.
Thank you, Rose. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers, Rosalind. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks very much. See you next time.
Cheers, Sharon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rosalind. Bye.
Tina.
Thank you, Ross. Take care. See you next time.
Cheers, Geeta.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Good night.
Good night, Rose. Thank you very much for an insightful session.
Oh, good, so thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yolanda, I see you still on the call. You're looking for how you can get onto the fireside chat.
Yes, yeah.
Telford, do you have Yolanda's details?
Yolanda, are you a mentor or a mentee?
I'm supposed to be a mentor, but over the period that I've been part of this, I've actually maybe had 2 matches and they didn't really match. So, and it was hectic at work, etc. But now I've gone on my own, and I want to, really do this as more a serious thing, just to develop and, to develop people and to do that. So.
And haven't you been receiving our invites to the fireside chat?
I can't recall getting it at all. So,
will you just check your spam, because those come from our mail thingy.
Okay, yeah, and I
And
know
sometimes,
it went to my work email address, so I need to change that as well. I think
so yeah, because we'll be sending out a reminder. Won't you just put your email address in the chat box for Telfer so that he can check on you?
Okay, so maybe you can just change it for me as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I will do that. I think that's maybe part of the problem. These things are blocked.
So Telfer sent his email address to you.
Oh, you did. Okay.
You can send it to him.
Okay.
Great.
Can
Noe, how was this for you?
No, it was quite a good session. I just wanted to find out as well about the Thursday sessions because I'm not aware how to join.
Ah, okay. I'm surprised
Can you
because
see Telfa's email there?
Yeah.
Maybe if you can make a note and then he can reach out to you. Sorry, Roz.
this invitation went to the same address that we send fireside chats, if I'm not mistaken, Telfa.
Yeah, I did.
Great. Okay.
Thanks.
So hopefully we'll get you on the list if you reach out to Telfa. Palesa, how has this been for you?
Yeah, I must say, oh, Kinelo is saying something. You may continue, Kinelo.
No, I'm done. I'm done. Thanks. Can continue. But
Oh, all right. No, I hung around because I really found the approach different and refreshing. It wasn't heavy because sometimes, you know, you take it that a process of learning is going to be where one is going to be bombarded with a lot of information which is too weighty. So yeah, I liked the mixture of you know, words, pictures, and the pace as well. At some point, I thought that the pace is too slow, and then I realized that actually, virtually, you need to pace yourself because everybody is experiencing different things. And when you think about it, we are at home and you can easily get distracted, and it's late as well, early evenings, late in the day. So you need to take what is being shared in. So a way to actually take things in is when they come at a pace which enables you to absorb and reflect on them. And I found that also a refreshing. I think that's something that I definitely have learned and will adopt. I won't borrow because I can't return. Sorry, Roslyn. But I like that. Thank you.
Thank you for
I'm
the
almost done.
feedback.
Okay, bye, Kinelo.
Anything else, guys?
Right. Cheers, Yolanda. Happy?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll
no,
get
I am.
you.
I've just emailed Telfa, but just also I enjoyed the breakout rooms because you get to know people a little bit better and reach out to them. So that I really liked because it's building in a way a community and so one can reach out to each other. So I like that. It's nice session.
Great.
Actually, I agree, Palesa, not too fast, not too slow, even though at moments you did feel that, but then it felt right. So, yeah, no, I was good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. It was lovely.
Bye-bye. Okay, well done, Roz.
Yes, thank you so much. I also will log out now.
Good, we'll see you next time.
Yes, definitely.
Cheers, Yolanda. Cheers, Palesa.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Cheers.
Okay. That was
It
our
is
first.
strange that how did they get invited to this if they didn't get invited to the fireside chats?
Not true, Dave. We do the exact same. They just don't read those.
Yeah, interesting. Because Yolanda has, I know, changed jobs, or she's gone out on her own. So that would explain one of them. But I'm not sure when she did that. But yeah, well done. That was, it didn't feel too heavy. Wasn't too intimidating ending up in the chat groups. There was good discussion, nice pace, and I think good learning.
Yeah, I tried to keep this one very spacious. There'll be others that are less spacious, but I didn't want to dive in with too much information. It's not necessary at this stage.
And 30, 35 at one stage, good numbers. quite a lot of people, I think, what, 5 or so from the